Good evening, I'm Allison Donnelly. Welcome back to Discover Cecil on Cecil.tv. This week's musical guest is Nicholas Bavani. Nicholas grew up in St. Mary's County and studied musical education at Shepherd and Westchester Universities. He moved to Cecil County 2 years ago and is the instrumental director at Northeast High School. Nicholas, when did you start playing music?
Well, first, thank you for having me on your show this week. I'm really excited to share what I've done with music. I've been playing music since 1999. My mother is a vocalist, and her piano accompanist at the local parish in St. Mary's County, where I'm from, kind of came up to me when I was in the 3rd grade and said, "Would you be interested in taking classical piano lessons?" And I said, absolutely, and that's kind of where it started. Then in the 4th grade, I began doing percussion in my local elementary school, and those two instruments just kind of stuck through all the way up until my senior year of high school, where then I had a decision, because I decided to go to school for music then, for music education. And it was kind of like, do I become a percussionist or do I become a pianist? And for some reason, piano it stuck out to me. So I decided to study classical piano, in addition to having percussion as a backup, at Shepherd University. There I studied with 3 piano professors, one of them being Dr. Scott Beard, the other one being Susan Carpenter, and then the final one, my junior and senior year, being Dr. Yushin Liao. Oh. And with percussion, I studied with Dr. Michelle Humphreys, who is just outside of the Baltimore area.
Oh, very cool. So would you name them among your influences?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think what really stuck out, every single person that's taught me piano has been a wonderful influence, and I've learned so much from them. But in my undergraduate, I had a lot of different piano teachers. There was just a shift in direction, which was fine. My original piano professor, moved up for graduate studies at Shepherd University, but stayed my advisor throughout the 4 years. So there was an interim piano teacher, and then now who is the associate director of keyboard studies at Shepherd University, who's Dr. Liao. But when I went to Westchester University, I studied with Dr. Igor Rezniensky, and I kind of took all those ideas that I had from my undergraduate and kind of put it into one honed-in area that I could focus on for those 2 years at Westchester. And he was a huge inspiration and huge influence to my performance.
But you also mentioned to me that Jim Morrison and the Doors are a big influence for you.
Yeah, it was. I kind of got into music of the 1960s just because it was around me all the time.
Were your parents listening to that when you were?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. My mother is obsessed with the Beatles. Anything 1960s she's going to listen to. But I remember just listening to that music and actually like taking her CDs that I still haven't given back yet, and listening to that keyboardist, and I'm 16, 17 years old. Bach and Mozart isn't necessarily going to be the number one thing in my life that I'm going to be inspired by. I wanted to connect with something, and Jim Morrison was this poet and this artist, and his backup keyboardist really wasn't a backup keyboardist. He was kind of the center of the show. Mm-hmm. Like, if you listen to Light My Fire, what do you hear the most? It's the keyboardist. And what he did for that band, and his technique, and his just an overall philosophy, and what he did for piano, for electronic music, was just really caught my attention when I was 16 years old, along with Lady Gaga, along with eventually Mozart, and eventually Bach, and then eventually our more contemporary classical musicians, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Right, because you said that part of your vision for musical education is to incorporate pop music into classical music.
Well, I think it's important for us to understand, I went through, not just me, but many musicians go through just multiple phases in their studies of music. You go from listening to Radiohead and listening to 21 Pilots to going to a conservatory-like environment, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, well, the only thing I have to listen to right now is Mozart. Mm-hmm. The only thing I have to listen to right now is Brahms, which there's nothing wrong with that. But what makes them so much different than some of the stuff that we're doing right now? What I do with my students, particularly the ones who aren't studying music, who are just taking a general music class, is I connect what they know to something that they don't know. For example, if you listen to Dr. Dre or Britney Spears. A lot of their chord progressions are very basic chord progressions that you would see in a Mozartian style, just a little bit simplified, because pop music is not really meant to be listened to with a fine-tuned comb, you know what I mean? It's really, it's meant for enjoyment, and it's meant for you not to think. So with that younger generation under me, I kind of show them that there are elements of Western music in our music today, and that really gets them a little bit more inspired and a little bit more like, oh my goodness, like that's really cool. And I learn from them just as much as they learn from me.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. So what are you currently working on?
Currently what I'm doing is I used to play in the Philadelphia Wind Symphony. I was their principal pianist when I was a graduate student at Westchester. And then when I came down to Cecil County, I've done various things throughout the community, including I was a piano accompanist at Jane's United Methodist Church, which was lovely. But in addition to that, I really wanted to get involved in playing in a wind ensemble setting. So recently I have joined the Elton Town Band, which is, I believe, one of the oldest town bands that we have.
I didn't know that.
I mean, this is just relatively new news for me. It's just hearing the history from the community members in Cecil County of how long the town band has been around, and then being able to be a part of it is really an honor. It's made up of various different kinds of musicians. You have professional musicians, music educators, and then people who just want to continue on with music after maybe high school or college. So
what's next for you?
I basically, when I went to school for music education, I really had a goal. And this goal was to educate our students between the DC and New York metropolitan areas on a really firm foundation. Having them come to appreciate our contemporary classical composers like John Adams, Philip Glass, Shostakovich, Sergei Prokofiev, and really having them open their mind, because a lot of these students don't know what this is. I was very blessed and fortunate to grow up in a musical family where I heard both classical music and popular music. However, not everyone has that opportunity. Yeah. So for me to expose them at a globalized level is a goal for mine for, over the next 10 to 15 years. It's really what I want to do.
That's exciting. So next you're going to be playing some of your own music.
Correct.
And some Mozart.
Absolutely. So I'll be playing the 8th Sonata, 3rd movement by Mozart, and then I'll be playing an original piece, which is a spin-off of my string quartet that I composed in 2014.
Oh, cool. Well, I can't wait to hear it.
All right, great. Looking forward to it.